So as we saw in some of the comments, the title of this class changed a few times. So we just made up what we wanted to do ourselves. And this is our new title. So we're going to talk a little bit about palms, a little bit about traditional knowledge of palms, and then commodity expansion, particularly with books. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about just general palm diversity in the Amazon, some of the ecology, social dimensions, and Char is going to talk about the most fun part, economics. Like you all, we are all also tired, so excuse our use of notes and a lot of big pictures. So the Amazon is basically the land of palm abundance. Numerous writers have referred to palms as the trees of life because of their use in food and construction. They're also the cornerstones of many environments, particularly wetlands, and they're intricately woven into the kind of the cultural fabric of urban and rural dwellers. This is my one slide without a picture, so we'll go through it quickly. There's 550 species approximately of palms in the neotropics, 150 of which are found in the Amazon. There's this general trend of kind of a west to east decrease in palm diversity. So as we move into the lowland regions, kind of eastern Brazil, you'll find less palm diversity. More palms are found closer to the Andes, so Ecuador, Peru, Colombia. I highlighted Ecuador, of course, because I like Ecuador. 4% of the Amazon, but 120 species versus Brazil, which has significantly less number. This is just some pictures that kind of highlight some of that diversity. You'll get all kinds of changes in the spines that grow on trunks to the aerial roots, the way they fruit acai and some of the oil palms, and also just the places they're found. So swamp forests, most palms are found in kind of these boggy, wet environments, but you also find these upland palms on terra firma. So these are kind of the major palm groups. There's roughly 16 or so different palm groups. I'm not going to get into them really at all. I'm going to highlight a couple though. I decided to skip acai because I figure everyone here has a lot more experience than I do with that palm. So we're going to talk a little bit about aguaje, Urruti in Portuguese. That's why I stick to Spanish. As well as some of the oil palms, particularly not the African oil palm. I'm going to talk a little bit about the American oil palm, which is the endemic to the neotropics, but how it's similar to the African palm, and Char is going to get into that. But first, some of the ecological characteristics. So as we read about earlier in the semester, diversity of species rather than abundance of individual species, what characterizes most tropical forests. Palms are the opposite. So they're kind of this paradox of tropical forests, in that they're commonly found in high densities of the same species, particularly in aquatic environments. So in Ecuador, you can travel along the river for 30 minutes and see the same palm species the entire time. When I was reading these original readings, I was confused. So this one palm species, aguaje, basically this entire forest here is almost entirely aguaje. So it's a real kind of paradox. From the air, these are basically, stands of one single species. I've lost it. But the ecology of the actual palms within these forests are incredibly intricate, and these habitats interact with upland forests, savannas, and they're linking people, animals, and ecosystems, primarily because of their rich fruits. So the fruits, which I should have had a picture here of, are basically a strategy that ensure that the seeds live long enough to be able to germinate. They have this heavy kind of fruity coating around the seed, but also as a means to attract animals, people, whatever, as a means of dispersal. So these are some of the animals that disperse these seeds. Invertebrates actually play a very large role, particularly as pollinators, but they also are living in these palms in search of food. So you'll find them often in the canopies of these palms. And one study of one palm species in a small area in Mato Grosso found 17,000 different arthropods across 22 genera. There's a lot. these little guys hanging out in these palm trees. Birds, obviously, there's tons. They rely more on the palms as individuals rather than as habitats. So few species are actually restricted to palm forests. They're mostly using them for food and for nesting sites, that kind of thing. Of the 16 genera of palms, 11 are known to host feeding birds, primarily parrots and macaws. Mammals, tons of mammals, monkeys everywhere. So monkeys, tapirs, peccaries, rodents, possums are kind of the major groups. That's a tapir. I think everyone knows what a tapir is. Fishes also play an important role in palms. It's a important habitat for small fishes. And there are at least 200 species of fish in the Amazon that can eat and disperse fruits, like this giant catfish there. And then there's obviously reptiles and snakes and caimans and turtles that live in these habitats and interact in some ways with palms. So now one of the species that's now making me hungry, aguaje. It's the most widespread palm in South America that's restricted to aquatic habitats. And they can grow in a variety of soil bases, from sands to clays to these igneous rocks. And once they become established, they can start to make their own soil. So these large quantities of fronds that fall into the water and other debris kind of are constant replenishment and lead to this thick organic layer that can in some cases be 4 or 5 meters thick. This is kind of the historical range, a little bit about their growth and germination and production. On a more useful side, there have been, just for this one species, 22 uses identified, from anything from insect repellent to housing to mats to various foods, and they're using basically every part of the tree, from the trunk to the leaves, the blades, the flowers, the fruits, everything. And actually gathering the fruits, these are one of the tallest palms. Some are often over 20 meters. So the literature kind of goes in by place. Peru, they'll often fell the tree. In Brazil, they often climb an adjacent tree or that tree. So there's lots of different techniques for gathering the fruits. And one, I should have had a picture of it, but one interesting thing is the suri. You know, there's these beetle grubs that grow in the trunk of the tree that are very popular, especially in Peru. So that's one reason they fell the trees. Get at those big, fat grubs the size of this one.
Are they tasty? Why are they pumpkin?
Tasty, good nutrient sources. Yeah. Put them on grill. They're great. So the other one is this American palm, which is related to the widely planted African palm, which is mostly what's dominating these plantations. So it resembles the African palm, but it has a different kind of overall appearance. The American palm kind of creeps along the ground versus the African palm, which is pretty relatively straight and makes it great for plantations. They're mostly found in the higher parts of these seasonally inundated forests. And beetles are the primary pollinator. But what's interesting is that the beetles that pollinate the American palm is actually different species from the African palm. When they were first trying these things out, they weren't having very much luck in the plantation. A single palm can usually produce 1,500 fruits in a year, of which they'll get about 100 kilos of this oil yield, and then they can make various stuff out of that, which Shar will go into a bit more later. This is found across, it's endemic to the Amazon. It's thought that the American palm was brought with the first migrants who were coming kind of through Central America. So it's got older dates to Central America, but it's still considered a native to the Amazon. I just wanted to stick with true Amazon palms. I'll just skip through that. That's kind of their territory. Traditional uses is what Miriam's going to most get into. I just wanted to highlight a couple things, that palms are probably the single most important family of native plants exploited by humans in the Amazon. This diversity of indigenous uses has kind of faded out over the past year or so. People have gone towards more roofing iron, that sort of thing. But And the reverse is that with urbanization, there's been more increase in demand for the fruits. Blah, blah, blah. And just to finish with some very happy thoughts about human influence, contemporary things. It's thought that we humans might have increased the range of palms, particularly the fruity ones like the acai. But for the most part, because of their location in these boggy swamps, it's thought that maybe they don't really increase the range because people take the seeds with them and then they don't have a chance to reproduce. Felling, yeah, I mean, different sustainable practices in different areas. Obviously, cutting the trees is not going to be great. Fruit harvest, just cutting the whole tree down versus plucking the fruits. Fruit harvest, I'll just skip that. And so basically, yeah, large scale land uses transformation. The Amazon is happening so fast that a lot of these aquatic habitats are being severely damaged. So this was once basically an aguaje gallery forest that once they put this dam in, it changed the entire kind of dynamics of the wetlands. So now there's hardly any there. In the palm forest in the I don't know how to say that. Sahara. Yeah. Are being destroyed by stream modification, excessive fires. In Peru, the gold miners are getting in and changing a lot of these palm swamps as they dredge for gold and other minerals. And then on the floodplains in the Rio Amazonas, cattle ranching has been a pretty negative influence. So I'll finish our bad notes there and get back on the book.
Okay. Bom dia. I will talk about the relationship between the human and palms, and also the importance and use for local people, and as well as the social movement created, and some implications about the industrial expansion of palm in Amazon. Before. The connection lost.
Yeah.
Some slide was lost. No, the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The human-palm connection between that shows the interdependence between biological and cultural diversity. According to some scholars, such as Charles Clement and Nigel Smith, the actual diversity of palms is result about since the modification provoked by the indigenous people through the selection and propagation with the palms. And in some groups, Amerindian groups, the palm represents the tree of life, like Michael. Buriti palm, I'm going to explain 3 species, the buriti, the dendê, and the babaçu. 3 important palms in the Brazilian Amazon. In these cases, is the buriti. The buriti manifestly both cultural and biological elements. Far from being restricted just to its natural domain, it has been appropriated both materially and symbolically by populations that have long lived with it and have depended on it for their survival. Here is the example of the uses for indigenous people and the importance in their cosmological worldview. This picture represents the Chavante indigenous people run with pieces of trunk of buriti. In this social activity, they want to demonstrate powerful as well as the physical resistance. between different clans. In their cosmology, the buriti is the plant which supports the sun. It's very important. And they also use in the food and as medicine use. The edible oil has organoleptic features with high beta-carotene and pro-vitamin A content. This is the indigenous people called Catuquina in Amazonas state, where I worked with them. This is a special cloth made by Buriti. Only the men use this kind of clothes, but in each ritual they have to elaborate new clothes with Buriti. And while the women, they prepare a special drink with Buriti. It's delicious. But all the activities related with the ritual, they need abundance of Buriti in order to prepare and continuing the ritual. Okay. This is a picture of Buriti in the Cerrado or Brazilian savanna ecosystem. According to the sertanejo, the people who live in this area, the tree, Buriti, is considered a tree with much authority. The Buriti has accrued significant historical and socio-cultural value and is respected and preserved in the cultural context of the sertanejo. In light of the economic and socio-cultural dynamics in the region, the authority of the Buriti should be respected, for it was traditionally a tree of life for the sertanejo group because it provided a house, food, and a bed in their own speech. It has acquired even more authority today, not only as a potential source of income, but also as a symbol of beauty, biodiversity, and ecological service. Now I'm going to talk about the babaçu. It's a potent palm, principally in the Quilombola territory. This is the oil, babaçu oil, and a kind of flour that's very appreciated for this group. They can prepare cake, mingau, that is a kind of and they use also as a medicine. Okay. The Quilombola is a racial ethnic group with specific land relationship and black ancestries related with the resistance against the historical oppression. In the image, we can see some Quilombola lands in the green color. These lands were already registered, while the dark color is in the lands is in a process of registration. Okay, and inside these areas, we have the quebradeiras of babaçu coconut. That is the group of women, a collective group responsible for the collection and production of babaçu coconut. We can call women breakers of babaçu coconut. They combine ecological consciousness, autonomy in the production, use of traditional knowledge, and also a way to represent and to face some problems against the expansion of the farm in the region, in a way to value the identity, the women identity. The production is based in the family unity, where all the generation, the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter work together. They go together in the babaçuzais, yeah, the area with a lot of babaçu. And doing a collective work to prepare the oil. It's also an alternative economic for the family. Here is a speech with a woman saying, "We are women breakers of babaçu coconuts, homemaker, mother, grandmother, wife rural work organized by the interstate movement of Babaçu coconut breaks that I'm going to explain better now. The main goals of the movement is to provide better life and work conditions for the women, as well as the conservation of the environment and the organization of the land. The quebradeiras break the Babaçu coconut, as well as the machismo culture, the super masculinity. And in their community, they are very well recognized as a powerful changers of the problems that they have there. But they also had some conquests. We have two examples. In the Maranhão state in 1997, they implemented the Free Babaçu law that according to this law, the quebradeiras can have free access to the Babaçu's eyes, even when it's a private property. And also, the law restricts the burning of the deforestation of Babaçu and the use of herbicides. In Tocantins, they also implement a law with the same aspect to restrict the deforestation. And another good thing, they restrict the sale of the entire coconut, because it's a big problem for the women, because the other farmers, they sell the entire coconut to be used in the firewood, to use as firewood. One of the most conflict that they have there. Okay. Here is an important research developed by the project called New Social Cartography in the Amazon. They did a cultural mapping, a collective mapping with the quebradeiras of Babaçu. And here they wanted to show the main areas where they collect the Babaçu and also the main kinds of conflict. We can see in this symbol the associations. Here is a quilombola territory in the area of the association. And the other symbol, like this, like the money, is the problems that they can find. The other quilombola land, we have a lot of problems when they sell all the entire coconut. But it's not the quilombolas, the other farmers who sell to the valley industries. Okay, and then other kinds of problems. Now I'm going to show briefly. Can you put in the 21 to 2, please?
Marcos. Ó, Marquinhos. Logo isso pra ele, vai?
Olha, quando eu nasci, minha mãe já quebrava. Então eu olhava ela quebrando o coco, que ela ia fazendo. De acordo que eu fui crescendo, eu já cresci nessa luta e aprendi. Ser quebradeira é tudo. Porque tudo a gente depende daquilo, que é o coco.
Do coco, tira a casca, faz o carvão para cozinhar a comida, faz o óleo. Aí faz do óleo, faz o sabão, faz o sabonete. tira a pindoba para cobrir a casa, pindoba para fazer a mensal, para botar na porta, fazer o cofo, para botar o carvão, para colocar o coco. Tudo é da palmeira.
Nós mesmas, mulheres quebradeiras de coco, coordenam o nosso trabalho, nós mesmos coordenamos esse movimento. É o Movimento Interestadual das Quebradeiras de Coco Babaçu, a qual estou falando, o MICCB.
Now, to finish, I'm going to talk about the dendê, the African palm. Dendê is a very important palm used in the Afro-Brazilian religions. In this context, to represent a bipolarity about cold and warm for the orixás. Orixás is the spiritual entities in the Afro-Brazilian religions. And each orixás can be related with the hot characteristics. And if the orixá has a hot nature, you choose to offer to him only foods with dendê oil. But if the orixás has a cold characteristics, you should not offer food with oil. Dendê oil. This is a picture with different kinds of food that are offered to the orixás. That picture is the acarajé, one of the most important foods. It was a ritual to Yansan, the orixá who likes the acarajé. And the acarajé is a very common food that we can find in Salvador. You can buy in the streets of Salvador. The elaboration, you use beans and cook the beans in the oil, the dendê oil. Okay. This is the same project that I talked before with Babaçu, but in this case, it was developed in the northeast region of Pará State. In this case here, we have an expansion on the dendê production, cultivation. In the article of the course, Maria Blackhouse, she explained, and Char will explain better these economic filters in this process. But I will show some of the conflicts specialized. Okay. Here is also a quilombola territory. They did this mapping showing the problems of the dendê cultivation surrounded the territory, and along the time this expansion is going to another areas. And this symbol, I think it's here about the river contaminated with the poison. It's there. Can I see now? That one. I think it's another example. Now it's here. The problems with the contamination poison that they use and the contamination of the river. Here is a picture about the cultivation. the quilombolas and other local people, they call this process as the Dendê Tsunami or Dendê War, since the many problems resulted with this production, with this program. And here some of the impacts for them. They complained that the industries arrived there and didn't explain their social and biological risks in this project. And the biopalma, the slogan of the industry is the biopalma industry is for the people, but they talked the local people about the prohibition to enter to hunting, to do hunting activity and fishing in the areas. And one NGO, Brazilian NGO, also developed a report explaining there the kind of jobs almost as slave labor because of the bad conditions of work, and problems in the food security because the industry, the biopalma, they say that the kinds of activities can offer more job, better job, instead of the agriculture, the production of manioc flour, but the local people say the opposite. Here is a speech of a man. I worked with the chemistry. I started at 5 a.m. and finished at 2 p.m. I used 12 and sometimes 50 poison gallon. I received $5 for each day. Before I go to work, I should drink milk in order to tolerate the poison. Okay, and their speech to finish is, we don't eat dendê, we eat manioc. Okay.
Right. So I'm going to talk about some of the more macroeconomic aspects of oil palm production. As you can see from this chart, Indonesia and Malaysia dominate global oil palm production, and they account for about 90% of the production that happens. Some other nations that are strong oil palm producers are also located along the equator, as that is an ideal area for growing. And Brazil is ranked number 12. They've had a lot of increase in cultivation in the past 40 years or so due to some national-based incentives, and there's a lot of potential to increase that with the amount of land they have available for cultivation. So regarding Indonesia and Malaysia, they are the biggest suppliers of oil palm globally, and it's critical to their economy. With Malaysia, palm production accounts for a quarter of oil palm production is because of Malaysia, and more than half is from Indonesia. And most of this conversion comes from land that was previously peat swamp ecosystems or low-lying forest, which is converted both by smallholders, farmers, and private companies. This has jeopardized habitat for a lot of endangered species, such as the Sumatran tiger and the orangutan. And in contrast to this, Brazil is trying to avoid direct deforestation by growing on degraded lands. And also, there's another thing. Yes, and this year, actually, they've witnessed severe fire outbreaks, more severe than usual, which could possibly be attributed to slash and burn agricultural practices and El Nino impacts that have led to drier than usual forest conditions in the Pacific. Colombia is the biggest oil palm producer in the Americas, which is attributed to their ideal climate for growing. Like Brazil, they were introduced to the African variety of oil palm in the 1960s, and they plan on doubling their production by 2020. And while this has provided a lot of economic opportunity in the region, the biggest challenge is the expansion of multinational companies into land that legally belongs to the Awa or Quaker people, and also citizens of Afro-Colombian descent. And their main concerns are that they're not being consulted before their land is imposed upon, and also fumigation practices, which are mainly done to increase the productivity of the crop by removing beetles, but also is associated with really negative health impacts. And Sonia will talk more about this in Brazil. So in Brazil, last year, they produced 340,000 megatons of palm oil, which is a lot. And The government wants to promote oil palm production as a suitable means or alternative to deforestation in the region. As it sequesters carbon and it can improve the quality of degraded soils. Their agroecological zoning program identified 30 million hectares of land that would be suitable for cultivation, which was, as we saw in the readings, it was deforested before 2008, which is their standard for degraded lands, but that definition could use a little more focus, I suppose. And yeah, with the land that they identified, the bank would provide credit for people who would like to establish oil palm plantations. So the supply chain in Brazil starts with producers such as smallholders, farmers, and plantation owners, moves on to processors and manufacturers, and then distributors. These are a few examples of companies that are, examples of distributors. Farmers have the option to enter in inclusive farming contracts with distributors and major companies, which is beneficial in that it does provide some income generation and it's easy to establish the plantation, but it also is accompanied with negative effects such as the farmers losing control of their land in that they can only grow oil palm. They're not allowed to grow manioc or anything else because it's essential for the productivity of the company. And it's very hard to convert land away from oil palm after you've already established the plantation. Yes. So what's fueling the demand for oil palm is globally is generally cooking oil. It accounts for 1/3 of the supply of vegetable oil that's produced annually. It's also used as an additive in food and cosmetics because of its ability to substitute as a trans fat, and it goes into both food and cosmetics because of its antioxidant properties and other health benefits. And with bioenergy, the government of Lula da Silva initially started promoting the production of biodiesel as a way to decrease dependence on foreign oil and for its relative sustainability to traditional fossil fuels, as it would have a lower amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And here is a video produced by the government detailing the benefits of oil palm cultivation. If we can start it at 1 minute.
Programa de Produção Sustentável da Palma de Óleo no Brasil. Diferente de outras experiências, no Brasil, o Programa de Produção de Palma de Óleo nasce com diretrizes e normas ambientais que disciplinam a expansão do cultivo. A produção ficará restrita às áreas desmatadas no passado. O programa nasce sob o signo da sustentabilidade. Essa estratégia é coerente com os compromissos de preservação ambiental que o Brasil assumiu voluntariamente na 15ª Conferência das Nações Unidas sobre Mudança do Clima na Dinamarca.
Yeah, so they are promoting it as a very positive impact for the Brazilian economy. Even though it has its associated challenges, they would like to see it as a general benefit. Yes. And RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, is the major certifying body for palm oil, and they have 2,500 members such as Unilever, Nestle, Cargill, just some really big names. They certified 20% of global palm oil. They mainly function by trying to ensure that producers and other components of the supply chain align with their criteria for environmental sustainability and fair labor practices. Their biggest complaint or means for improvement is that they don't condone the use of, they don't prohibit conversion from deforested lands and in high conservation areas that is allowed by them. And their comment on that is that if they were to do that, then many people wouldn't go for certification, especially in Indonesia, where it's the strongest driver. So they are trying to improve on that. And these are their standards for criteria, or their criteria for certification, which mainly support the use of fair labor practices and transparency when it comes to companies detailing their impacts on the environment and what they are doing when it comes to high conservation areas. And these are discussion questions. So.
Yeah, I think we're gonna start. Told Sonia about 10:30, so I think we have like 5 minutes or so for discussion.